And now,
ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
You know, business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Don Gosher.
how well did that go down?
Talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at PreneurMarketing.com.
Happy New Year, everyone. Pete and Dom are here, and we are back for 2014 with the marketing podcast, PreneurCast. Yes, we're about 4 weeks late to start this year, but we thought we'd let everyone's New Year's resolutions come and go and really kick it off at the start of February this year with a lot of awesomeness. So welcome, Dom.
Thank you, sir, and Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to everyone.
Yes, it's been an exciting couple of weeks. We've sort of enjoyed a little bit of a break, enjoyed getting our own foundation set for this year, because we've got some major projects coming up for everyone, which is exciting, and back into the show now, which is awesome.
Absolutely. It has been a busy few weeks after a good rest across the holidays. I think we've both been incredibly busy the last few weeks, just getting everything sorted out for 2014, for us and for other people.
Absolutely, and as you know, people would probably know from the media online, it's awards season right now. You've got the Oscars and the SAGs and the Grammys and all that sort of stuff. So we thought we'd start off this year's series of marketing podcasts with our awards, our annual awards show.
Yep, although I'm telling you now, I'm not wearing a dress.
Fair enough too. So what's been going on? You've got some really cool projects in the works at the moment. What else has been happening?
Yeah, I've been really busy, kind of starting up a new thing, building on a lot of things that I've been doing in the past on and off. But I'm doing a lot more consulting for big businesses now into 2014. Saw an opportunity and went after it with a guy I'm kind of starting a new business venture with. The thing that's most interesting, I think, to people who listen to this is the growth in interest that we're seeing in LinkedIn. Now, you remember the excellent interview you did with Wayne Breitbarth earlier on in 2013. And that stuff really stuck with me, but it really seems to have struck a chord with a lot of people out there in the bigger companies. And there's a lot of things that LinkedIn are doing. They're moving forward. They're putting a lot of great tools together, not just for the companies though, but for individuals. So folks, if you haven't listened to that episode, the Wayne Breitbarth LinkedIn episode, or read Wayne's book, or you haven't basically kind of gone in and had a fiddle about with LinkedIn, strongly recommend you do that, because it really is becoming a force to reckon with out there on the tinterwebs, as they say.
Absolutely, could not agree more.
And
Very
Pete,
cool.
so you've been super busy. You've been doing your unbelievable amounts of energy demonstrations again by cramming in a huge amount of stuff in the last few weeks, haven't you?
Yeah, got a couple of half Ironman triathlons coming up. First race is this weekend, which is predicted to be about 40 degrees Celsius, which I think's 110-ish. Is that right? You double it and add 30 for Fahrenheit? Is that something crazy like that?
I don't know, because I do Celsius. All that other stuff's just too many numbers for me.
Damn hot, which is
it's going to be hot.
Doing a lot of training for that. And also, I guess, if people are on our noise reduction newsletter list, where we send out regular updates of cool things we've found online in terms of articles worth reading, videos worth reading and stuff, which, you know, if you go to PreneurMarketing.com and just opt into the community there, you'll get those newsletters. One of the things that I offered at the start of January was to help people get clarity and, you know, remove that distraction and things for the start of this year, was offer 15 one-on-one consulting sessions with people, where we jumped on for an hour and kind of, you know, really dug down of what was their friction point for 2013, and, you know, getting rid of the stuff that's not warranted this year, and really getting clarity on what this year needs to be, what the business model needs to be, and more importantly for a lot of people, what their 7 levers are, and, you know, some homework almost of these are the action points, the low-hanging fruit for each one of their 7 levers. So over the next 14 weeks, they could spend 2 solid weeks on each lever, increase them all by, you know, more than 10%, and effectively double the profit of their business in the first couple of months of 2014. So they went really, really well. Got some amazing feedback from those, and trying to work out a way that I can do them much more regularly and fit them into my schedule, because I really did enjoy those. People got a lot of value out of them as well. So trying to change up the model a little bit of what Preneur Marketing and the consulting side of stuff looks like this year, so we can do that for a lot more people, because I think it was hugely rewarding. And we're actually going to do an episode on that in about 2 weeks' time. So we're going to be diving into clarity and distractions, and the big takeaways that I found that was consistent among a lot of people that I spoke to, what we did in those sessions, and actually kind of give a bit more of a virtual version of that consulting session on the podcast. So stick around for about 2 episodes' time, and we'll be going into that in an episode, which will be great.
Yeah, I think we've spoken about this, offline, and I think you found what I always find whenever I'm doing any kind of either training or coaching and consulting, and that is that, you learn almost as much as the people that you're helping. Because you learn a lot about what's going on out there in the real world. And you said, you really genuinely did enjoy it. And we have some fabulous feedback. We got absolutely mobbed. I mean, as you said, we just sent out the offer to the Preneur community, to people that are on that mailing list, that have gone to PreneurMarketing.com and signed up to the mailing list just to be, get the general information stuff. And you just made the offer, and that was it. The slots went, bang, gone. And as you say, we want to offer this to a wider audience, and we're looking at ways to do it. But I know, as soon as you said you were going to do it, I knew people were going to get value. So I think it's a great thing, and we really are going to work towards that. But definitely look out, a couple of shows' time, folks, for the big lessons that we got, the commonalities that Pete spotted from those sessions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Pete, moving into 2014 then, as you've been helping other people to do, as we always do on the show, I'm always interested to know what you've been reading. Since you've had such time on your hands, what have you been reading? Did you finish that book? Did you finish that Arnold Schwarzenegger book?
Not quite. It's 23 and a half hours long or something. So, and obviously, I listen to that book when I run, and unfortunately, you can obviously hack it a little bit to make it play at double speed, but for whatever reason, I decided just to listen to that at one speed. So, it's 23 hours worth of running, and I haven't quite hit that yet. It's almost finished, but not quite. But I've been out on the bike and doing a whole bunch of other stuff, so I have had some other books happening at the same time. And one I've really enjoyed from Audible was Fooling Houdini by Alex Stone. It's been a really interesting book. It's the way I explained it to someone recently was it's Walking with Einstein for magicians. So Walking for Einstein was a book that we have mentioned on the show, another Audible book you can get about memory and this guy's journey to the World Memory Championships and how he sort of developed his memory. And there's a bit of education there and a great story at the same time and a bit of science. And Fooling Houdini, this book by Alex Stone, is exactly the same thing, but he's trying to go to the World Championships of Magic and become a really good magician. And there's a lot of business lessons in there, a lot of interesting stuff. I just find magic and illusion really intriguing. It's very close to the whole perception and influence kind of worlds, obviously, and what magicians have to do to be successful. And I found it really interesting to listen to while I was out on the bike and doing some bits and pieces around the house this last few weeks. So that's my Audible book of the week.
Cool. And folks, as PreneurCast listeners, you can get a free trial of Audible if you're not already a member, and you can use that free trial to download this book. And just go
or any book.
Audible, or any book, because it's a huge collection. Any of the ones we've recommended. I do recommend that Walking with Einstein, by the way. Rocking book. Very interesting. But go over to audibletrial.com/PreneurCast. And you can get a free trial of Audible. And that link and everything that we talk about in the show will be in the show notes over at PreneurMarketing.com.
Absolutely.
So, Pete, are you ready? Have you got your bow tie on? Are we going to walk down the red carpet for our awards?
I have the tux. I am ready to go. This is going to be better than last year's Oscars party with Elton John. This is going to be huge. So,
you actually went, didn't you? I forgot about that.
Last year went to the Oscars Elton John's viewing party, which is pretty cool, and got to hang out with Heidi Klum and a whole bunch of other really cool people, so that was a lot of fun. And one of the guys I went with to that party last year was at the Grammys this year, a few days ago. So he's out and about, and I think he's got a taste for celebrity, so he's went there this year, which is interesting. So yeah,
we should try and get that photo as the show photo, I reckon.
Be in Heidi.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
I'll shoot it across and put it in the show notes for this one.
Excellent.
So let's get started. Shall we drum roll? Yeah. Eli's sleeping next door, so I can't be too loud.
Folks, every year we do our awards. We look back at the year and we like to nominate things that we think have been the most significant things for us in the past year. These are things that we've read, used, people we've worked with, whatever it might be. We have some standard categories. And it's kind of a recommendation thing, but it's really is, like a long-term review as well. We've used these things for some time, and they're things that we genuinely think that need a bit of a special mention. So every year about this time, we do our awards show. And we have some standard categories. Those categories are things we're going to talk about today: software, hardware, books, services or tools, people or a particular person, and an information product or a training product that we've actually consumed ourselves. So Pete, if you're ready to go, what piece of hardware was the most significant to you this year?
For me, it was a stylus pen. I've been obviously doing some more consulting in the last couple of weeks, but also towards the end of last year doing a lot more consulting stuff and various things. And I found that sharing my iPad screen on my Mac and then allowing the person I'm talking with to actually see that was hugely beneficial for the session. So I used a application on the Mac called Reflections or Reflector, depending on which version you have. I think they changed the name. I don't know why. But basically what it allows me to do is actually mirror my iPad screen onto my laptop, and then through Skype screen sharing, the person I'm talking to can actually see my iPad screen, which is really handy. So when I actually am walking through the 7 levers or really delving down into a business's, structure or their process map, or we're talking about some, website design, I can actually literally draw stuff very easily on my iPad and share it with that person. So the value they're getting on these consulting calls is just magnified and really, really good, and people seem to love it, which is great. We record the session, they get a copy of the recording, they can look back over it later. We can export the handwritten notes from the iPad, and they get a whole bunch of notes they can take away after the session. And this tool that I'm actually using on the iPad as a stylus is amazing. It's an Adonit Jot pen. So ADONIT is the manufacturer, and it's the Jot pen. And it's a stylus, but it actually also works through Bluetooth as well. So it actually has a pressure sensor. It's when I'm writing, it sort of knows where the pen is on the screen, and if my wrist is resting on the iPad, it won't actually draw anything on the iPad either. So it kind of knows that if you use a traditional stylus, anyone who's done that, they'll know that if they're drawing with their stylus pen and then their pinky scratches the page, their pinky actually registers and draws a line, and it can get very frustrating. But with this Adonit pen, because of the Wi-Fi functionality, it's pretty cool. It's like $150, so it's probably one of the most expensive styluses going around. I got a little bit overexcited one weekend when I saw it online and went and bought it. But realistically, it was probably the best purchase I made this year because of the application I'm using it for. And if anyone's doing drawing or writing or taking notes in meetings or doing anything where they're writing on their iPad and then going to be using that information after the fact, the precision of this pen is amazing.
I think actually, mate, I mean, it's not really the show to go into any more depth about how you use it, but I do think maybe you could make a quick video about that, and we could pop that up and maybe send it out to the noise reduction guys or something, just to show that workflow, because I think what you do with that is phenomenal.
Yep.
And you've had such fabulous feedback about it. But basically, folks, I mean, it's a pen that allows you to draw on the iPad screen, which doesn't sound that impressive. But when you see what Pete does with it, I can totally appreciate that it has made a huge difference.
It's the Jot Touch, just to be specific, if everyone actually goes to...
And as always, folks, we will put links to all these things in the show notes, so don't worry if you're out jogging or whatever, walking the dog as usual, washing the dishes, go to PreneurMarketing.com, and the name of everything that we've recommended and all the links will be there for you.
Beautiful.
So, my piece of hardware, I'm going to be boring with my piece of hardware, Pete. I'm going to re-recommend my MacBook Air.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Because this last year, you talked a little bit about this. You've had times this year when you've decided you're not buying anything new. You're just going to no more gadget expenditure and et cetera, et cetera. And I've tried to have a year of that. We've talked about the fact that I'm changing what I do and whatever else. And one of the things that's happened is I am now traveling a phenomenal amount by comparison to what I used to travel. I know we went through that crazy phase when we were doing Profit Hacks, and we were in Florida quite a lot. And for that trip, I invested in a MacBook Air, and then after that, it didn't get used as anything other than an average everyday laptop for a while.
So you have an actual Mac desktop at home?
I have my primary machine is an iMac, full screen, big old iMac summer desk. That's what I use every day. But the truth of the matter is that this year, that MacBook Air has literally paid for itself because I can drop it in any bag. It doesn't add any particularly noticeable weight to anything. It's a full power machine. It does everything I could ever want it to do. It doesn't slow down or skip a beat. And it's just there all the time. It's just a phenomenal piece of kit. And it's actually, when you look at what you get for the money, not that expensive. And bear in mind, folks, that across the year, I could be doing anything from recording and editing this podcast to editing videos that have been shot on all kinds of different video cameras, writing documents, playing with graphics, whatever it might be, out and now I'm having to do it out in the middle of nowhere, away from my desk, away from my main machine. So I really have poked and prodded this machine to the extreme, and it's still, as far as I'm concerned, the best piece of hardware.
Well, the Air is the only thing I have. It's what I use. I carry it with me everywhere. It's my device.
You took that on board, when I came back from that trip, and you said, right, I'm going to give it a go, because you were always a MacBook Pro guy, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, and just because I thought I wanted the power, be manly, but I realised that I've completely maxed out the Air. Like, I've got top of the line with all the additional, I've basically pimped it out as much as I could when I bought it. So it is like the high-end MacBook Air, but it's a machine I use in the office when I'm in the telco or in the e-com business. I take it around and just plug it into the network wherever I am. At home, it's on the Wi-Fi. Laptop upstairs in the office. At home, when I'm around, it's the one machine I use all the time, and it's it takes a bit of a beating, but it powers through, which is fantastic.
Excellent. Okay, so we've talked about hardware. Now let's talk about software or applications that we've got loaded on our various boxes.
I actually, to be honest, found this one a very hard one to answer. I thought Reflections or Reflector, as I mentioned before, could have been one of the tools this year because I use that a lot. And I went through basically the actual software that I use on a daily basis, and it's been the same stuff. There was nothing amazingly new this year. I was hoping OmniFocus released the updated version because I had access to the beta and alpha versions of the new, GTD software, and that would have been cool if they released that publicly, but it's not available yet, so I can't use that. Evernote, notational velocity, Pages, Chrome. Same sort of stuff. I use the same stuff as I do all the time. And I kind of realised the only other tool that was kind of new to my repertoire, so to speak, this year was a tool which I think is free by memory, or at least it's only a couple of bucks, called Self-Control. And I think it'd be super helpful for a lot of people out there listening to this, particularly the people I've had consulting sessions with recently, which I think is most people in terms of the habits and the issues they've got, because it affects me too, is distractions. Is that, obviously if I'm going to sit down, I'm going to have a 7-level session on one of the businesses, and I'm going to be working on, transactions per period for a particular business. I don't want to have distractions. Or if I'm working on a a plan for a new book that I'm working on with an Australian publisher. Hint, hint. I don't want to be distracted. So self-control, what it does is you can set up certain website addresses in its settings functionality. And when you load it, you say, okay, I want to have self-control. I want to be disciplined for 30 minutes, 90 minutes, 4 hours, whatever it might be. And then you hit start, and basically there's no way of stopping it from allowing you to go to those websites. So, you can put in, Facebook, Twitter, some news websites, whatever it is, whatever site you sort of go to regularly to get distracted, Feedly, if it's a new sort of, Google Reader alternative. And that way you cannot get distracted from the main objections or the main sites that you come up against. So that's kind of been helpful for me a little bit with this year to be even more so disciplined. But really, it's been a funny year for software. There wasn't anything new that really jumped out at me that went, this is awesome, this is different, this is in my workflow on a regular basis. Even iPhone apps, I was looking through my iPhone trying to figure out what stuff I'm using a lot more of this year. But from a software perspective, it really has been the same old, which has been very interesting.
Interesting. Well, you mentioned in your flood of what it could have been, you mentioned Evernote. Mm-hmm. And in previous years, I've talked about using Evernote as my task manager and all kinds of things. I've got kind of this really elaborate way of using it as a task manager. Mm-hmm. And I've been that. I've gone away from that, and I'll talk about that later on in another section. I no longer bother with Evernote for that. But I have to say, Evernote continues to be probably the thing I use the most for pretty much everything else, for capturing information, because it's connected to my phone, it's connected to my iPad, it's connected to my desktop as the apps. There's also all the little plugins for the browsers and the ability to send things from my news readers to it for filing and things like that. So I do use it literally hundreds of times every day. It's pretty much the thing I use the most, other than email. I'll use that. But I will give an honourable mention for it's something that I picked up 1 week ago.
Oh.
Yeah, and I have to mention this, okay? Because I'm on. You've done it. You've finally done it. I'm on a fitness kick. I'm not where we live. You really should. If you're not an outdoorsy person and whatever else, then you've got no excuse, really. I don't know how you could live where we live and not be an outdoorsy person. It's such a fabulous place. But I manage not to go out very much, other than to walk the dog. And I wanted to be a bit more all-round fit. And across one of my many news feeds came the official Johnson & Johnson, what it's got to do with them I don't know, 7-minute workout app.
Oh.
Now, the 7-minute workout is one of those faddy things that's happening at the moment. Everybody's got a 7-minute this, that, and the other. 7-minute workout.
6-minute abs.
Blah, blah, blah. No, it's more than 6-minute abs. It's a...
What, 7 minutes? It's clearly more than 6 minutes abs.
Yeah, 7 minutes is, is this idea of, if you do 7 minutes of exercise every day or whatever, it's, but it has to be an all-round kind of thing. But the quality of this app is phenomenal. Wow. It really does demonstrate what you can do. And I'm not talking about, it's not like it's got... they clearly spent a lot of time and thought doing it, but not necessarily a lot of money. It's a great example of a really good single-purpose iPhone, iPad app, done really well, really easy to use, really obvious, really logical, etc., etc., etc. And a little bit like your self-control, where you say, right, well, I'm going to focus and I'm going to do this, and so I'm going to turn this thing on to make sure I do it. The 7-minute app is great because you turn it on and go, right, I'm going to do 7 minutes. So I do it first thing in the morning. Before anything else happens, before I read my email or anything, I turn this thing on and press go. And it mixes up a huge repertoire of exercises, and literally it's got little video demonstrations of what you should be doing. So you watch this little guy do this thing, and for how long? So you just do it. So you don't have to think. You can literally roll out of bed in your with your pajamas on or whatever, and turn this thing on, and it goes, right, off you go, and do this, do a leg lift, do a high knee lift, do a side plank, whatever one of those is, for 7 minutes, and then you're done, and you've done your exercise.
Very cool.
And I'm actually exercising.
This is exciting. I want to see before and after photos. Can we do that on the blog? Can we have a before and after photo?
No. That gets filed up there with me wearing a dress. No. Okay? I'm not taking it that seriously. But it's great. It actually makes you, it's like with everything, we talk about this, with any kind of getting things done, motivational stuff or whatever. We've talked about it before. It's like the easier you make it for yourself to do something, the more likely you are to do it. And exercise is one of those things that even if I, got the stuff out, got my running gear out, whatever it might be, when it came down to actually doing an exercise routine, which covered my whole body, just thinking up the exercises or working out what I was going to do was always that was the thing that stuck me. So this thing just does it. It's in a box, done.
Love it. Very cool, man. Very cool.
There you go. So that's my kind of bit of software, even though it's only been with me for about a week.
I like it.
All right, moving on. I hesitate to ask this because we've already covered your book of the week. But what is your book of the year?
Whew, this was a hard one because obviously, we talk about books and what I'm reading on a weekly basis on the show, and that doesn't cover every book that I get sent. Like I'm looking at a little pile on my...
You read a phenomenal amount, don't you?
Well, I'm looking at a pile on my desk right now. There's like 4 books I've been sent in the last week from various authors and stuff. So, don't read every single one, but I at least browse most. So it's, it's a big selection to choose from. 2 that kind of stood out from me, which is not the winner, but 2 honourable mentions, as you say, is The One Thing by Gary Keller, and we'll try and get Gary on the show at some stage this year, I think, because I think it's really important. It's about the simple truth behind extraordinary results, and it's fundamentally about doing one thing, not trying to have too many plates spinning in the air at once. And it's a big theme of the consulting sessions I had recently, which I'm sure people probably read between the lines of what I alluded to earlier. So that was a really good book for a lot of people, so I recommend that to a lot of people that I worked with throughout the year last year. The other honourable mention, which was a very, very close winner, was Start. Punch Fear in the Face, Escape Average, and Do Work That Matters by John Acuff, who we're trying to organise schedules right now, so he'll be on the show in a few weeks' time, which is super exciting because to me that'd be almost audio book of the year if we can sort of break it up a little bit, because John read the book, or narrated the book is probably the perfect term to use, and did an amazing job. It was a fun ride, if you will, from an audiobook. I think I mentioned that when I first spoke about the book on the show a few months ago.
I remember distinctly you commenting on the narration that John did of his own book.
Yeah, the book's funny, it's great, it's engaging, but the way he actually read it as well was just phenomenal. So that has to be audiobook of the year for me. In terms of actual book of the year, is a book we mentioned earlier, Total Recall by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think one thing that, I kind of knew about Arnold was that, obviously he was, Mr. Olympia, Mr. Universe, blah, blah, blah. He was, the biggest actor in Hollywood, and then he was obviously the governor of, California. That, he was successful in 3 different fields, but I kind of went, oh yeah, cool, he was successful in 3 different fields. But going through this book, it was really amazing about how focused, how dedicated, how hardworking, how determined, how smart he actually was. Is that while he was doing his movies and starting his movie career in Hollywood, he was doing night school and learning business. And his first big success was a direct mail business, doing exactly what we talk about here, like doing direct response marketing. And then he was investing in real estate and was one of the primary developers of the whole Santa Monica area. So he has been successful in a vast array of areas that I wasn't aware of. And just sort of hear his story and his words about, what drove him and how he worked and what he actually did and those sort of things was really, really inspirational and educational. So that book to me was probably the book that stood out the most last year.
And the one that took up most of your time.
Well, absolutely, 23 hours worth.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, his story is phenomenal, and it's one of those things that I think very few people really know the detail. So I agree with you. Definitely worth the read. Something that my book is an old book that I've talked to you about this recently. I kind of rediscovered this when I first read this book. It had very little relevance to me, and I find that sometimes I read things and I go, "That's interesting," can't use it. I'll file that away. And we do that with a lot of things, and later on, it's relevant. It's what makes us good at what we do. And the book is a book called Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. And we have mentioned this on previous book recommendations. It's something that you've mentioned in the past, Pete, a long, long time ago. And it's a book about selling. No, it's a cunning title for a book about selling, spin selling. But it's about a very specific type of selling, a very specific technique that is explained in this book. And it comes from a bunch of research, and that's why it's interesting. It's a huge bit of scientific research these guys did about what the most successful salespeople for high value sales do differently to regular sales.
And I think that's one thing. Sorry to cut you off there, but when I first heard this book, I still remember when I was recommended this book, I was at university, and I don't know why I remember this, but I remember being at university in part of the quad and someone saying to me, go read Spin Selling. And I initially went, no, spin selling, spin, hypey, wanky.
Yep.
That's my first reaction was, it was like, spin selling. I don't want to be a shonkster and spin people like that in that kind of manner. And I kind of avoided it for a while until I actually went.
I was totally the same. The same.
That's the thing, is like it's research based. It's not about hype. It's not about sort of the art of persuasion and influence or anything mystical or even dodgy, for want of a better word. It is a really good book that is definitely worth reading.
Yeah, just very briefly, the spin selling comes from this acronym that they came up with, is SPIN, and it's an acronym. It means something. It's not the word spin, it means something. This was a mistake both Pete and I made. The core of the book, really, and the thing that made a huge difference to me, the reason why this stands out and made a massive difference to me this year, is because it's changing what I'm doing. Because the book is basically research to prove the point that the best thing you can do if you want to sell something to somebody is find out what it is that they want, get it, sell it to them. And it's based around that concept. Now, it's something that a lot of people say in various sales and marketing arenas, but this book is actually about how you go about doing it. It's about asking questions. And it's incredibly structured, incredibly well researched. There's a lot of evidence behind it. But having read it twice and now started to use the techniques because they're relevant to me in this larger arena that I'm working in, I've also realized that it's applicable to small businesses as well. It's one of those things that if you look at it in the context of the 7 levers, for example, there's a lot of the different levers that it's applicable to. These techniques are applicable to a lot of the 7 levers, and maybe we'll come back to that in another show. But definitely, folks, Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. If you've got anything to do with, certainly if you're in things like consulting or selling high ticket items, I cannot recommend this strongly enough.
Yeah, here.
And I have a backup, an alternate kind of another thing. You said you've got your kind of
honourable mentions.
Honourable mentions. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. And it is another book that again you've mentioned in the past, and I finally got round to because I did, because we had the guy on the show. The guy was Josh Kaufman, and he was originally famous for writing a book called The Personal MBA.
Yeah.
And again, it was on your list of things you recommended, and I eventually got round to it. And again, a phenomenal book. Literally does what it says on the tin. It is a book that is the equivalent of, obviously with caveats, but the equivalent of doing an MBA. So it is the basic grounding in the business and the principles of everyday business in this book. And I was blown away. It's an amazing concept. And you can find out a huge amount by going to the website, actually, Personal MBA website.
We should get Josh and I. Also, I was going to say, Josh and I are actually chatting again via email this week, and I think we might actually get him back on the show to talk about that, because we had him on the show to talk about his book on learning, which is a very interesting book in its own right. But yeah, I think the personal MBA stuff would be hugely beneficial for our whole community. So we should try and tee up Josh back on the show.
I think so too, because Josh turns up later on in the awards. Okay, excellent. So that was books. So the next thing we talk about is we call it service or tool. So this is something like an online service or an online system or tool that we've been using. And you said you know, no particular software has leapt out at you, but what about online services or tools?
Yeah, I think there's been two that left a very strong mark on me this year. One which I had a dig at recently in a blog post, funnily enough, and we're kind of going to make up on next week's show with that, which we'll talk about later. But this is Xero. It's Xero with an X, so xero.com. It's a online accounting software package. Boring as hell. I know you guys are listening and thinking about. I know, woohoo, accounting software. Pete, you are
Everybody,
awesome.
Wake up.
No, but seriously, this is something that's actually made bookkeeping fun. And I know it sounds really weird, but it's important to manage the numbers in the bottom line of your business and also your personal finances as well. Because like a lot of people that I speak to, the reason they're wanting to start this entrepreneurial journey is not necessarily because they have this passion for an idea to take to market. It's because they need to earn more money than they are in their job, or they want to supplement their income, or they just want to at least replace their job with something they can control. And it's not about trying to build the next Facebook and be really passionate about anything like that. They just want to make an income. And I think the first step to actually getting towards that goal is not actually to start a business. It's to actually get control of your finances. To have those foundations of wealth in place. Which is, some stuff I'm writing on the blog. There's, a couple of essays I've written recently about this on the blog, so make sure you check it out. But also it's, the project I kind of hinted at earlier with a publisher, so you can read between those lines a little bit. But Xero has been fantastic, I think. We control a lot of our different business units and businesses I'm involved in via Xero. I also manage my personal finances through the Xero offering. So I think it's a really cool package, very easy. It's all web-based. So that was been a really cool service. I've used a lot more this year. We used it for a while, but really got my teeth into it in a number of different projects this year. So I think that was a fantastic service and tool, even though I did bag out some of their marketing tactics recently in a blog post. But Penny from their marketing team is going to be on next week to actually chat about what they're actually doing and why they're doing what they're doing. And it was a really, really interesting conversation to see how a software for service, a SaaS, is actually marketing their business. So stick around for next week to listen to that. The other tool that I used a lot this year and fell in love with was Lead Pages. Clay Collins, the guy behind that, has done exceptionally well with his software. It's only about 2 or 3 years old. They raised, I think, $5 million in venture capital this year. And Lead Pages is just, pumping out a whole bunch of amazing features. So fundamentally, it's a very quick and easy way to build opt-in pages, webinar registrations, download pages, some of the key marketing pages that most online-based businesses or businesses who are marketing online need. And it's a very, very cool tool, got some great templates, very easy to use, and they're continually adding new features and functions that help marketers increase their opt-ins and conversions, and obviously a few key things from the 7 levers. And a good friend of mine, I was able to help her get a job there in the marketing department, and she's loving that. We're trying to work out a way at an angle that we can get on and talk about what we're doing with Lead Pages on their podcast in the next couple of months, which is exciting. But we've done some blog posts about how we're using it, how to increase our opt-ins and stuff like that. So we'll link up to that past blog post in today's show notes. But Lead Pages is one of the other tools that I've found really, really cool and really highly recommended this year for a lot of startup entrepreneurs who don't have a lot of tech skills or don't have a team around them, or even some high-level marketers like us, or who think they're high level at least, are using it as well just for efficiencies and effectiveness, and it's been fantastic.
Cool. And I agree. I agree with you about Lead Pages. It's a phenomenal thing because so many people let things like the technology of things get in the way, or the design or whatever, and people get hung up on it and they don't get the job done because either they don't know how or they're too busy, in analysis paralysis. And Lead Pages is great because you just fire it up, go, I want one of those. I want it to say this, go.
Yeah.
Fabulous piece of kit. So love it. For me, on the other side of a very similar situation, which is a tool that helps me produce something that I do an awful lot of. And this tool is called Orphonic. Now, I've talked about this in the past. I talked about it a lot more inside of the Platinum group, because Orphonic is an audio processing tool, which means pretty much nothing to pretty much nobody.
Nothing to me.
Nothing at all. What it actually does is it takes raw audio files and does all kinds of clever stuff to them, like remove hum and rustles and wind noise and hiss and things like that. So if you've got recording of two handsome chaps chatting over Skype about business and marketing issues, and you want it to be a high quality podcast production, you can pop the files up to Orphonic and tick a few boxes, and it'll give it you back in whatever format you want it to be in, but in a much higher quality. For example, sometimes one of us is a bit louder than the other for various reasons, and it can sort all that out and make it all one level and things like that. So it can really put that final polish on your production without you going through and manually fiddling about with it.
Very cool.
Now, when I found that out, I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to have me some of that. But when I started using it, and this is the reason why it gets the award, is when I started using it, it's so much more. It's a workflow tool, and it is now a fundamental part of the PreneurCast podcast workflow. And this is something I probably will do, a video about. Because what I do now is I give it basically the recording of our call, missing, and just tidy up the front and the end, and throw it up. And Orphonic, you ready for this, adds the intro and outro. It adds all the data for all the iTunes information. It adds the logo. And after it's processed the file, it uploads it to SoundCloud, which is where we now put our podcast, as well as uploading it to the file storage, the Amazon S3 file storage, where we store our files to go to the iTunes thing. So all those different files to be created in all those different formats, all that data to be added, all those things to be done, all those steps have now been replaced by me sending a file somewhere and clicking a button.
So basically you're redundant.
No, I am not redundant, sir, because I am an integral member of the show.
Fair enough.
But I've literally reduced my workload, or the workload of my team, immensely just by sticking this thing into the flow.
Very cool.
And it's just phenomenal. And wait for it, folks, it's free.
Wow.
It's totally free. It's just quite amazing. I don't know how they do it, and I'm not going to ask because I'm just happy that they do it, and it's wonderful.
And they clearly don't tack on their own little advertising at the end or anything like that, which a lot of free sort of software editing tools do.
No. There is no. Your file is pristine, perfect, and you're listening as you listen to the show, folks. It's been through Orphonic. Okay.
There you go.
There you
go.
Very cool. Advert enough. And honourable mention, Asana.
Yes, I actually had some notes I forgot. Yes, I was going to mention Asana, and I was going to mention Satori too. So you tell Asana, I'll tell us Satori's story, and we'll move on. Okay,
because this shows you folks that we're moving away from the desktop stuff and moving into these online software as a service things. You know, Pete's already talked about two. I'm going to talk about two, and then there's one more. Asana is an online project management tool for teams. Now, you may already be using something like Basecamp. You may be using other tools. If it's just you, you might be using all manner of things to manage your projects. But you may have noticed, if you're a member of the Preneur community and you follow along, you may have noticed a flurry of notes between me and Pete on Twitter a while ago, and between a lot of other people as well, about us dropping out of using things like Basecamp and moving into using Asana because it just works. The guys over at Asana have been developing this tool for a while, and they really have cracked it. You know, it's a great way of planning projects, managing projects, communicating with a team about projects, and just generally getting things done and keeping an eye on them. And again, within parameters, it is free. to give it a go and work on small projects with small teams. So can't go wrong really there.
Well, in terms of how you want to define small projects and small teams is, we run the entire Preneur group on Asana, because we obviously have a lot of overseas team members and stuff like that, and we're using the free account. So you can define small how you want. Obviously, you've got a lot of balls in the air strategically and do a lot of different stuff, and it still works fine in their free account. So it's pretty sweet.
So, yep, definitely check that one out.
The other thing I wanted to mention too, which you can almost argue it was a this year award, so it may turn into a winner in next year's award. But we started playing with it at the end of last year. It's a tool called Satori, Satori, and it's a really cool tool that basically allows you to book and manage consulting sessions. So it's one of the things that made me made these last 15 consulting sessions that I did in January, the strategy sessions, really, really easy to manage and maintain. And it's also one of the reasons I'm thinking about doing more of them this year, because it was such a breeze to actually make happen. From my perspective, it links up with my Google Calendar, and I can say, okay, these are the times in a week I'm willing to do consulting sessions, and then if I happen to actually schedule something else in one of those times in my Google Calendar, it automatically blocks it out for availability, which is really cool for the end user. And then what happens from a user's perspective or a client's perspective is they come along to our particular page, they can select a time that works for them. It syncs with global calendars and different time zones and stuff like that very, very easily. They then can put in their details. They then can make the payment for the session. They then get asked a questionnaire, which is all customizable, of course. So that way, they're thinking and I'm thinking, and I'm on the same page before we go into the session. So we won't spend 20 minutes rambling about crap to get a bit of a backstory. I can have that all beforehand. It makes us sort of get to the nitty gritty of the issue and the strategy in our sessions, which is phenomenal. And it makes it all very streamlined and easy, all automated. No one has to be involved. Flow or Joy or any of the team don't have to actually start scheduling stuff. It's all done automatically. That syncs beautifully with calendar times and stuff like that. You can do contract-based stuff if you have a client you want to work with on a regular basis and want them to sort of be billed every month and have new sessions scheduled every month and stuff like that. So it's a really, really cool piece of software that if you are in that sort of consultancy space is definitely worth checking out. It's been a big help for me at the end of last year and obviously for the month of January, and will be a prime piece of what's going to help me, if we can make it work, do 3 or 4 of these strategy sessions a week, which I've been really enjoying. So that's kind of the plan. So that's been another piece of software or tool that's been a huge benefit to me of recent times.
Yeah, and that again is an online service that you can sign up for. And the great thing is it's another thing like Lead Pages where they manage everything for you. You just point things at it. So with Satori, you just go, oh yeah, you want to book a session? Go here. And everything is there. It's all in one little world. Booking, paying, if that's the nature of it. Booking, paying, filling things out, all that, all done. It's so easy to set up, and it looks great. And that's just if you wanted, you could bypass the entire website situation and just use that kind of thing. I mean, it really is great. So
absolutely, big call out to Locke and the team there. Do an amazing job. Yeah,
cool. All right, so. One more of our categories that we do every year is our significant person of the year.
Yeah, this one was an interesting one for me. I kind of wasn't sure which way to go with this. There's been a lot of people doing a lot of great things this year. And to me, I guess the person who kind of stood out and seemed to have their finger in a lot of different pies that kind of crossed my desk was Ryan Holiday, the author who we've had on the show before, behind Trust Me, I'm Lying. It's his book. And also Growth Hacking was a book he released this year. He's done some amazing writing on his blog and on Thought Catalog this year. And he continues to be the strategist behind numerous best-selling books and marketing campaigns, American Apparel and some movies and a whole bunch of stuff. He's a very, very smart guy, and obviously got to know him a bit more throughout the year, but even from a distance, he has done some pretty special stuff this year. And I think he, to me, was probably the person that stood out and came to mind the most in terms of doing amazing stuff this year and having clear direction and things like that. And got a new book coming out this year as well, which is exciting. So he's probably the person who stood out the most for me this year, I'd say.
Cool. Well, the person that stood out for me is a member of my team.
Ooh.
And this is a weird one because my nephew, Adam, joined my team some time ago. And it was a temporary thing at the time. He was between things. And he's a pretty sharp cookie. He knows his way around stuff, as most young kids do. And I just brought him on as a general hand, just to do some stuff. And he showed an interest in certain areas about what we were doing. So I gave him a bit of training and a bit of support. And he showed me that he could do things and get them done. And he was motivated. And it's gone on from there. And he's now an integral part of my team. He is basically like mini-me. He's not mini-me because he's taller than me, but he's like my mini-me. A huge amount of the things that I used to get involved in, that I used to do, that I used to think, oh no, only I can do that, or I have to do that to make sure it gets done the right way, I no longer have to do. I can trust and rely on Adam to get them done. And I can also trust and rely on him to research and find out about new things, new technologies, and he's motivated to train himself and develop new skills to benefit the business. It's been a huge weight off my shoulders this year to have somebody like that as part of my team. The other reason why he is my person of the year is because of how much I have learned by working with him. You see, because we talk about these people and we look up to people like Ryan and we say Ryan's doing some great stuff and reading his blog and things like that, but I have learned a phenomenal amount about managing people, managing myself, communication, things like that. By working closely with Adam, by developing Adam, I've been developing myself. We talked about this topic a lot in the past, about outsourcing, about working with people, and about it all being about the communication and the way that you put the information across and the support you give your team. But until you do it, you really can't understand it. So working with Adam this year has been a huge learning experience for me. But it's just been fabulous, as I say, having him on the team and able to take on these jobs, take responsibility, run with these things and get them done. So he is my person of the year.
Right, that's very, very cool. I love it. Another person I thought of that I want to give a bit of a mention to as well, which kind of has been around for a while, but I only kind of heard of this year, I guess, for whatever strange reason, which we had on the show as well, was James Altucher, who written a number of books. His book this year, Choose Yourself, was a great seller, partly thanks to Ryan. But he's done some really good stuff, and reading back his previous blog posts and stuff, I always seem to find something interesting in his approach to business and life, and that was been really interesting this year as well. The other person I was thinking about mentioning, but I wasn't going to because I thought it was going to be a bit weird. But seeing as though you mentioned your nephew, probably the person who taught me the most this year was Eli, obviously, who had just turned 1 about a week ago. So the last 12 months, he definitely has taught me more than anybody ever, really, in terms of just about patience, about focus, about sort of what I want him to sort of look up to and make sure I'm that person and stuff like that. And it's been interesting. It's been a crazy year, and he's definitely influenced my year more than anybody else. There's no question about that. So I should give a call out to my son, shouldn't I? So is that okay?
Of course it's okay.
Yeah, cool.
It's our show, mate. We can do whatever we want.
Haha, very true. Very, very true.
Cool. All right, so let's wrap these awards up with a little bit more back in the realm of the real world, and that is info product or training course.
This one was interesting to me because obviously there was a bunch of stuff came out this year. We didn't promote a whole lot. We promoted a few key things that we thought was worthy of our time and attention and support. Obviously, Magcast, which we believe in wholeheartedly, and I know a number of our community members are doing great things with their magazines online these days, which is fantastic. There was Video Genesis, which is a great video course at a very good price point, which we supported as well. But the product that actually stood out for me, and I guess personally was the most influential for me, was iVideo Hero, a very cost-effective little training course that we sort of came across at the start of last year, that I purchased and fell in love with very quickly, and then obviously turned around and supported that and told the community about it, because I was looking at buying a DSLR video camera, like, 1,500, $2,000 type Canon or Panasonic or something like that. And literally that same day, whether it was serendipity or not, I saw a tweet from a friend about a course that he'd bought, and I thought, oh, look, I'll go and check it out. It was about shooting video on the iPhone. And I know you've sort of spoken about before, and a few people said, like, the iPhone's, pretty good quality for doing, good video. And I was like, well, I wanted to get that depth of field kind of look with a blurry background and me being sharp and kind of take the production to the next level. And I thought, oh, look, I'll check out this course and see what it's like. It was like, $97 or something, very cost effective. So I bought it. And it was really amazing in terms of it showed me some apps to use on the iPhone that allowed me to shoot those sort of depth of field type videos and some, really key things and some tools and stuff around using the iPhone to create high quality video. So I went and bought an iPod Touch, the latest version at the time, to make sure I got the highest quality camera, because I'm still using the previous version of iPhone. I haven't upgraded. There's no need in my scenario, and a couple other bits and pieces, and decided not to go and spend that $1,200 or $1,300 on the DSLR and just use the iPod Touch and my iPhone to shoot the videos that you guys have seen me shoot on the blog in various places this year. So to me, that info product had the greatest impact for me, because it allowed me to save $1,200. That's always nice when you save money from an info course. It allowed me to shoot a lot more video a lot quicker because of what I learnt. It allowed me to, I guess, not get so stuck up on the tech and knowing I don't need the high quality stuff, which was really cool. So all in all, the value for that course, which is $97, I think from memory, it was around that, quite cost effective. And we'll put a link to it in the show notes as well, so we can check it out. That, to me, that was the course that influenced me the most in the last 12 months, which was really interesting and really, really cool.
Cool. And that's an odd little one, really, because a lot of those topics might be something that somebody might say, well, that's things that you could have asked Dom.
True.
And
well,
true.
sometimes you learn better from someone else that's not your parents. I know that over the next few years there'll be stuff I'll try and teach Eli that he won't believe me, but once a third party says it to them, he's going to believe it. So maybe this is one of those cases, Dom, where I had to hear it from someone else. Is that silence being
not really. I think it was just a case of, it was just such a great opportunity. It was an impulse thing, really. You just saw it and went and got it because it was, it's inexpensive, but the value you got from that was phenomenal. Your return on investment for that course was huge, and I
think
totally
that's what
agree with you.
made it stand out for me the most, was because of the I got a very quick, very high ROI that was very tangible and very. There was a high correlation and causation between the two, which was great.
Excellent. Okay, so I said that Josh Kaufman was going to pop up again in the awards, and the info product, pretty much the only one really. I'm not a great consumer of training courses, of the the ones that a lot of people come across, but I am a great consumer of kind of personal development stuff and things like that. You're probably a lifelong student of stuff from people like Nightingale Conan, aren't you?
Absolutely. I think it was one of the very first audio tapes I ever bought was from their collection.
Yeah, they are a phenomenal resource. Well, Josh has actually published the Personal MBA home study course. On Nightingale Conan.
Wow.
And it's all the content from the book, plus more. In this really engaging kind of format, and it is, again, I added the honourable mention to the book because I thought the book was great, but I think the course is even better. I really do.
Very cool.
It's a great thing. He's done it. He did it himself, kind of recorded it himself. But it's just a great coverage of the material. It's a great way to consume it. And the Nightingale Conan stuff is not expensive. It's like it's a couple $100 or whatever for the course. But the return on investment on that, again, is phenomenal. From that, you said this when you were saying about the consulting that you did. People are looking at entrepreneurship for various reasons, and some of those people are coming into running their own business, maybe from being inside of a business, being inside of a company. And if you're in that situation, I really do strongly recommend either this course or Josh's book to just get your head straight before you start about the whole concept of being in business. It really does touch everything in a sufficient amount of detail to give you a grounding. So definitely, if you're in that context, I really do recommend this.
Very cool. One other really quick, or two other things I want to mention when it comes to courses as well, which I was sort of a little bit skeptical about mentioning because it's not a core focus of the show, but the two courses I actually took this year, which I found the most influential as well, was a plant-based nutrition course from mindbodygreen.com with Rich Roll, who's been on the show before and a good friend of mine. And also I did a certificate in plant-based nutrition through Cornell University as well this year, which is really interesting. So I think, Matt, who we had on the show, in late last year, No Meat Athlete, make sure you go back and check that episode out because we touch on, plant-based nutrition, but more importantly, from this perspective about how he grew a blog with thousands and thousands of subscribers and thousands of readers and things like that. So it's a great business lesson in how he built that whole community he's got there, but also we touch on the plant-based nutrition in that conversation. But that has been a big shift for me in the last 12 months. So I think Matt's book, No Meat Athlete, his blog, are books worth mentioning, people worth mentioning. And it's kind of, it's important to me in 2013, Rich, Matt, Osher, three good friends who are all plant-based people, which has been inspiring for me and helpful. Matt's book, and also those two plant-based nutrition courses, one from Mind Body Green, which is hosted by Rich and his wife Julie, and obviously the plant-based nutrition course through Cornell, which is obviously a bit more expensive and a bit more in-depth. But there's some other stuff that was really influential to me in the past 12 months that I didn't want to kind of take a lot of time to talk about in this particular episode, but they were important to me, and people who are kind of interested in their health and well-being, I think those things are definitely worth checking out as well. So I thought I'd just touch on them and cram them in the end of the awards, and I know we're kind of getting long in time this week, so I thought I'd just touch on that and not go into too much depth. Cool.
Well, yep, you're right. It's a little bit of a longer show than usual, but not bad for a start to the year, covering quite a lot of stuff. So that's the end of our awards, folks, for last year. Obviously, as we go through the year, if we spot anything that's of interest and use to you, we'll certainly be dropping it in Pete's noise reduction newsletter, which you get if you are a member of the Preneur community, if you've signed up on PreneurMarketing.com.
Absolutely.
We'll send you that on a regular basis with the latest and greatest. And if it's really significant, we'll do what we always do, which is we'll talk about it on the show, and ideally we will get somebody in to talk about it. Maybe it's an author, maybe it's the person, somebody from the company, like we're getting Penny in next week.
Yep.
To talk about the Zero software. So, with that said, one of the other things we do regularly on the show is we run competitions. Now, normally it's something that we get from the authors on the show. We get them to give us free copies of their books and things. But this week, the competition, we're going to run it slightly differently. We've got 3 copies of Spin Selling for you. We've got 3 copies of Spin Selling to give away. And instead of the normal competition, what we would like you to do is leave a comment on the blog post for this episode. So go over to PreneurMarketing.com and look under the podcast section. If you can't see, the post is usually on the in the days after the release of the show, the post is on the front page of the blog anyway. But pop over, find this episode, and leave us a comment about your top thing of the year. Any one of our topics.
Whether it's a book, a person, some hardware, some software, let us know. Link it up and tell us exactly what it is that made the biggest influence for you in the last 12 months, why it's so, obviously, how it's helped you. And give us a little bit of details about, what it is and why it is. And, the 3 that we think are the best that we pick, whatever it might be, are going to get a copy of Spin Selling and be able to sort of put that into action and help their business in 2014, which is super exciting.
Yeah, and also, if you tell us about something we don't know about, then, maybe we'll feature it on the show or in noise reduction.
Absolutely.
that's, we love to hear from you, as we always do on PreneurCast. We love to hear from the community. So, with that said, Pete, it all just leaves us to talk about what we're going to do in next week's show.
Absolutely. So as we kind of hinted a couple of times or mentioned throughout this particular episode, we've got Penny, who's the marketing manager for Xero, coming on. And we're not going to be talking accounting. We're not going to be talking debits and credits, because one of the very first things she mentioned to me when we started talking before hitting record was, please don't ask me about accounting. I know nothing about it and cannot talk about the software in that aspect. So, everyone can breathe a sigh of relief for not getting into the reds and blacks of accounting, where we're talking about marketing, and we're talking about how Xero, as a software for service, markets their business. They contradict and explain why they did something that I bagged them about recently. They did some billboard advertising here around Australia with some street art. And in a blog post I referenced recently, I was like, why are they doing this? It's not direct response. What the heck? And she gave an extremely detailed and justified reason of why they did it. And also covered a whole bunch of other stuff in terms of how they market their business, how they take it to market, how they see their community, how they built their community, how they have their partners. And it's a really, really cool conversation about all things marketing and growing a very successful business. So stick around for next week's episode where we go into that in-depth conversation with Penny and share a whole bunch more.
Excellent. That sounds like a really, really interesting conversation. Cool. Well, folks, that was the 2013 awards show. Great start to the year. Looking forward to everything that's coming down the line in 2014. And we will see you all next week.
See you guys.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gocher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at www.preneurmarketing.com or drop them a line via PreneurCast@preneurgroup.com.